We expect the number 8 scale storm signal will remain in force for some time in small hours. At 11 p.m., severe tropical storm Merbok was located at about 30 kilometers northeast of the Hong Kong Observatory and is forecast to move north at about 20 kilometers per hour, moving across Merbok Bay. Merbok is expected to make landfall over the coast of Merbok Bay shortly. As it makes landfall, wind direction will change from northwest to southwest, and the rain bands to the south of Merbok will affect Hong Kong, bringing heavy rain and squalls. So we expect the northwesterly winds will gradually change to southwesterly. Areas which were previously sheltered will be exposed, so members of the public should stay on the alert. There will be very rough seas with swells. Members of the public should stay away from shoreline and not to engage in water sports.
Good evening, I'm Flynn in Hong Kong. Welcome to ViuTV News. Coming up on tonight's show. Umbrella will keep you dry. Torrential rain lashes Hong Kong as tropical cyclone Merbok edges closer. Taiwan lawmakers form alliance to support democratic development in Hong Kong. And scores arrested across Russia, including its opposition leader, as anti-corruption protesters pour into the streets. We start though with the weather. Typhoon season has got underway as tropical storm Merbok edged its way towards the coast of Guangdong. The observatory issued the typhoon signal 8 just before 5:30 this afternoon and warned the eye of the storm could pass over the territory. Strong winds and heavy rain lashed Hong Kong on and off all day. Quite the hassle for people getting off work. Many leaving early this afternoon to avoid the expected Typhoon 8. People were seen rushing to catch the last ferry to get back home in To Kwa Wan. Strong winds ripped a window from its hinges. Merbok is expected to make landfall near Hong Kong. Rain and a few thunderstorms are expected tomorrow morning. To Taiwan next, where a group of lawmakers are stirring up a political storm after forming an alliance to support calls for democracy in Hong Kong. It's called the Taiwan Congressional Hong Kong Caucus and was driven by Huang Kuo-chang of the pro-independence New Power Party. At the group's launch ceremony in Taipei this morning, Huang said the two regions are similarly being challenged by Beijing, citing Hong Kong's missing booksellers case and Taiwan's lack of international recognition. He added the group will serve as a platform for both sides to exchange views. A number of Hong Kong lawmakers and activists attended the launch, including Nathan Law and Joshua Wong.
The issues and the obstacles faced by Hong Kong in its democratic development and Taiwan in its international acceptance come from the same hegemonic government. These all arise from the same suppression of human rights, so both places need to broaden our experiences and deepen our mutual understanding and support so that together we can pursue human rights, democracy and freedom.
Meanwhile, with weeks to go before the current term of government ends, lawmakers are taking government officials to task over overseas travel. Broadcaster Now TV News reported in the last 3 months, Education Chief Eddie Ng and Commerce and Economic Development Secretary Greg So went on 6 trips each. One trip Ng took was to attend a UK education reform that ministers rarely go to. The last 3 months aside, Ng spent more than $3 million to attend more than 50 overseas events. Former Secretary for Civil Service Joseph Wong said the government has to explain the necessity of these trips to the public. In response, the Chief Secretary's office said there is a mechanism in place to approve all these overseas duty visits. Protesters in Russia have clashed with armed police as planned demonstrations against an allegedly corrupt government look set to sweep the country. Police were seen arresting some of those taking part. Arrests have also been reported at similar rallies in Moscow and elsewhere. Protest organizer and opposition leader Alexei Navalny was also detained, according to his wife. Navalny accuses Vladimir Putin of presiding over a corrupt system of rule ahead of elections next year. A wave of similar civil disobedience in March saw over 1,000 arrests throughout Russia. The European Union's negotiating team says it's ready for Brexit talks and hopes to stick with the agreed timetable. This, according to the Commissioner for Neighbourhood Policy and Enlargement, Johannes Hahn. He was responding to questions at a news conference in Brussels. For its part, Britain says the results of the country's general election last week won't change its plan or timetable for talks either. That's despite Prime Minister Theresa May losing her governing majority and casting doubt over leadership in the UK. Brexit negotiations are set to kick off on June the 19th. Well, for more on this, let's cross live to Matt Goodrick in London. Matt, Theresa May delaying the formal opening of Parliament is the latest that we've heard. What more detail do you have on that?
Yes, well, this is just the latest in a series of events since Thursday that really add to the uncertainty. The Queen's speech is basically the opening of Parliament after a general election. Governments submit a series of policies they want to turn into law, and usually, when there's one party in power, these lists get approved with a majority. May's problem is, of course, that the Conservatives don't have that outright majority, and so there's a lot of negotiations going on behind the scenes to strike deals that will allow her to get her speech through. Now, this was all supposed to happen a week from today, and 11 days after Thursday's election. Plenty of time, you might think, for bargains to be struck. The fact that she's delayed it, and without any official reason, we can only speculate, will surely only add to this growing cloud of uncertainty, should we say, and not just around May herself, but whether in fact the Conservatives have a workable majority at all.
With the cabinet reshuffle at the weekend as well, as we were talking about in our programme earlier, presumably all these developments are being watched very closely in Brussels.
Yeah, well, to borrow a German phrase, Joel, no doubt with a great deal of schadenfreude. The irony through all of this is that for many people, it's looking like the 27-member bloc of the European Union was the one cohesive unit, and a single country trying to leave is the one actually mired in political infighting and bureaucracy. Of course, those were some of the reasons politicians in the UK said they wanted to leave the EU. The fact is this, though. Britain started the two-year clock on the negotiations in March. The longer it takes to get its act together and sit down at the negotiating table, the harder it will be to strike the kind of deal it says it wants. There has been a talk of a possible extension on those talks, and we heard earlier today that May's position on those talks is the same as it was before the election. But having created such an adversarial atmosphere, it's unclear how many EU politicians in Brussels will be feeling too sympathetic.
All right, Matt, we'll leave it there. Matt Goodrick for us in London. Many thanks. Well, fresh from his presidential victory just a couple of months ago, Emmanuel Macron looks set to win a clear parliamentary majority in France. The first round of legislative elections held yesterday suggested En Marche and its allies are on course to win nearly a third of votes. That could translate to 70% of available seats for supporters of Macron after the second round this coming Sunday. But critics say yesterday's record low voter turnout means the party has a weak mandate. En Marche is a new party and as yet has no MPs. US officials confirmed 3 American soldiers were killed by an Afghan counterpart in eastern Afghanistan. This comes as the Trump administration is weighing up whether to deploy thousands of additional US and coalition troops to the country. Matthew Laratonda has more.
3 American soldiers killed and another wounded in Afghanistan when an Afghan soldier turned his gun on them in a so-called green-on-blue attack. A U.S. source confirming the incident, although details are scarce. The Pentagon only stating they've opened an investigation into a shooting. The governor's office in Nangarhar province says it took place there, where American special forces have been fighting alongside Afghans against Islamic State and the Taliban. The Taliban say the Afghan soldier was one of their own. He, too, was killed in the incident. Incidents of Afghan forces attacking coalition troops were a major problem several years ago, but has died down with the addition of new security measures for the forces. The number of U.S. soldiers in the country has also fallen, though. from a high of about 100,000 in 2010 to 8,000 today. This latest attack comes as the White House considers increasing those numbers again. Discussions thought to center on an additional 3,000 to 5,000 U.S. and allied forces. The Pentagon estimates the Afghan government has lost control of about 40% of the country.
OK, coming up next, the latest from the world of business. Well, Hong Kong shares have taken their biggest hit in 2 months as Wall Street's big tech sell-off rippled through the market here. The Hang Seng Index fell 1.24% to 25,708. Profit taking the story of the day, with investors even dumping the likes of Tencent, the Chinese internet giant, which was the toast of Asian trading last month, falling more than 2%. Apple component supplier AAC also diving 3.8%. Hong Kong homeowners finally appear to be taking a breather from the city's scorching property market. As of last night, only 80 of 206 apartments were sold in the latest rounds of offering at the Victoria Sky development in Kai Tak. Some 2,300 buyers had registered their interest, but since then, Deutsche Bank has predicted property prices here will collapse. A likely interest rate hike in the US this week may also be making investors think twice about making a purchase now. Uber will adopt every recommendation made following a months-long investigation into widespread sexual harassment and bullying at the ride-hailing firm. But the details of those sweeping changes won't be out until Tuesday. Another big unknown, the fate of CEO Travis Kalanick. As Chris Dignam reports, there's speculation he'll be told to step aside.
Uber's board of directors meeting Sunday to discuss a temporary leave of absence for its CEO Travis Kalanick, as the embattled ride-hailing company deals with several major issues, including 2 separate wide-ranging investigations into sexual harassment claims. Sunday's meeting could be a huge turning point for the world's most valuable venture-backed private company, which is worth roughly $70 billion but has yet to turn a profit. A source telling Reuters the board will consider sweeping changes to the company's management practices at the meeting, and that the discussion would involve the possibility that Kalanick might return in a role with less authority. Kalanick has a reputation as an abrasive leader, and his approach has rubbed off on his company. Last week, Uber said it fired 20 employees and is expected to adopt a number of internal policy and management changes recommended by outside attorneys hired to investigate the sexual harassment claims and the firm's broader culture. Uber will likely tell employees and the public of its decisions this week.
Well, Uber has even more headaches here in Hong Kong. A large number of drivers have quit the ride-hailing app, and police have arrested others as part of a government crackdown. Uber Hong Kong General Manager Kenneth Shea hopes the company and officials can eventually reach a compromise.
We know that the existing transport regulations is outdated. It's been written in the 60s and 70s. Those are the stuff we can't change. But the stuff that the government can change is to allow competitors to enter the market, because we all acknowledge